And what's up, everybody, and welcome to the TJ Bowser Power Hour. Thank you for joining me on the first episode of my new show. This is, of course, your host with the motherfucking most, TJ Bowser. And I got a very special guest for this first episode of the new show. Joining me today is actor, writer, and director now, Trent Haaga. Welcome to the show.
All right, here I am. Yeah, what's going on? Thanks for having me. Inaugural show. Congratulations. Since this will be one of your least viewed shows, I'm a great guest.
Right? Hey, I watched the Killjoy movies not too long ago, and I just fell in love with your work, and then that just led into the rabbit hole of exploring everything else you've done. So it's been a crazy couple of weeks, man.
I can only imagine. I don't know if you made it to the Lifetime movies or played the video game or anything like that, but I've been the depth and the breadth and the highs and the lows of this.
6 movies and a video game in, man. I'm doing pretty good.
Nice.
But let's just get the interview underway, man. So what influenced you into getting into the business, and where did you get your start?
I grew up in Western Kentucky when I was a little kid. We had a drive-in. This was pre-VHS. It was when there were only 3 channels on the TV. So movies were like a big event, when my mom and dad were like, we're going to get in a car and go to the drive-in, where I would watch the Ray Harryhausen movies and stuff like that. And I guess I always just had a natural inclination towards cinema and fantastic cinema, and the weirder, the better, even when I was a little kid. And then, of course, they invented the VCR, and I was finally able to see all the things like Escape from New York and The Road Warrior and whatever that my parents wouldn't let me see when I was a kid. And I ended up being a video store clerk, and I was always the kid that was into the weird movies, which was, before the internet. You guys just don't understand. Like, I didn't realize there were other people that were like me. I didn't realize any of this stuff. It was a totally different world, If you're a person who's into strange genre movies and you live in a small town in Kentucky and you go to school with 60 kids in your class, none of them watch the same stuff. They don't get it. They don't understand. So it was a little bit harder row to hoe back in the day. And I remember getting ready to leave high school and graduate, and I was working at a video store, and I was really into this stuff. And my parents were like, look, you got to go to college. And I figured I would just go work in the coal mines when I got out of college, like my dad. And so I was like, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I want to go to film school. And in 1990, there just weren't even that many film schools around. It wasn't like a thing like it is now. So I went to film school, and then I promptly got a job working in a completely unrelated industry, and eventually got into the internet world, where I was the entertainment content coordinator for CompuServe. And that meant that I was just like scanning slides. I was like trying to get news stories, and Troma had just gotten a website. I was a big fan of theirs from USA Up All Night when I was a kid, and watching their movies on VHS. And they were looking for extras for this movie, Terra Firma. And I went to my boss and said, listen, let me take the afternoon off. I'm going to go audition to be an extra in this movie. And if I can get in, I'll go shoot for a day, take pictures, and write a story and put them up on CompuServe as part of the entertainment thing. And they said, okay. And I just kept getting called back. I didn't have a headshot. I didn't have a resume. I mean, I was a film fan, but I never even considered acting or being in a movie. And I was just like, if I could just do this one thing, be an extra in a Troma movie, I'll go back to my cubicle forever, and everything will be, I will have gotten to do that. And I ended up playing a pretty big role in the movie. And I mean, I got a taste, and it was like, I liken it to, I've never done heroin, but I hear that you take that first hit and you're just chasing the dragon the rest of the time. And I feel like I've just been chasing the dragon of the high I got off of Terra Firma. I've gotten really close a bunch of times over the last 20 years, but that was the one. Lloyd Kaufman, that gave me a shot to be in this movie. And while I was there, I slipped him a couple screenplays I had written, and he was like, "Oh, you know how to write. I'm doing the Toxic Avenger Part 4." And I quit my job, and I went and did the Toxic Avenger 4, and there was no looking back after that.
Hell yeah. So what has been the most challenging thing you've encountered since you started filmmaking?
I think it's a day-to-day challenge to try to generate or get more work, and getting paid to do the work that you do. You know what I mean? Nowadays, everybody's like, look, I want to, for the first 5, 6, 7, 10 years, you're taking things on because you're like, I want the experience. Oh, you're going to let me write a movie? I will take virtually no money to do this, to have the experience. Then you do that a bunch of times and you're like, now I'm an experienced guy and people still want to like lowball you all the time, So I think making a living, being able to pay your bills while creating this stuff is probably the biggest challenge. I mean, but being on set and trying to get a movie done while there's a certain amount of daylight, while you've got 6 people in makeup and you're having a car crash and whatever, or also there's the day-to-day physical challenges of production. And I mean, there's a myriad stories from that. But I would say the hardest thing over the 20 years that I've been doing this has been just, how do I feed my family doing this? How do I keep the lights on doing this? And harsh, but it's true. You know what I mean? That's the, especially at this level, making the kind of movies that I want to make, kind of crazy things, kind of challenging things, movies that are for more of a niche audience, or the movies that I want to see. It's really difficult to live.
Yeah. So you were known for both acting and writing. What do you find to be more difficult, and why?
I find writing to be more difficult all the way. I mean, not that I've done everything on set. I've PA'd many years. I've when I called That's a Wrap on my first film that I directed, my next job 3 days later was filling up coolers for a music video as a PA. I boomed. I've done craft services. I've worked in the art department. I've directed. I've written. I've produced. I've done it all. And acting is the most fun. And, I'm sorry, actors, and I love you and I love working with you, but it's definitely the least labor intensive job on the set. So writing is way harder. You don't have anybody to give you feedback initially. You're alone, questioning your every move, every word that goes down the entire time. It takes a concentrated, lengthy amount of time to do it. It actually takes me longer to write now than it did when I was first starting out, because I know what I'm doing now. But back then I didn't have fear, I didn't have the experience, or I wasn't scrutinizing my own work as much, and now I do. And so although my writing is way better than it was, it's also a lot harder to do.
Okay. Awesome. So what are some of your favorite films that you got to work on while you were with Troma?
What I did with Troma is I did Terra Firma, which, like I said, was my entree into the film world. And I was an actor, so I wasn't really required to do a bunch of horrendous, laborious sweat work. So it was great. Toxic Avenger 4, I wrote, I produced, I assistant directed, I acted in it, I cast it, I did everything for it. A huge amount of work, but I, for God's sake, I got to, be one of the authors of a Toxic Avenger movie. So it was a very heady experience, and it was very exciting. I did Troma's Edge TV for them, where I was the host. We did a bunch of episodes of that for UK's Channel 4, and I wrote Lloyd's book. So, and I worked in the office, just being Lloyd's general go-to guy, setting him up book signings and appearances and his schedule and everything like that. So I did a lot for Troma, but I only did 2 movies, and they were both amazing experiences. They were my first 2 movies out of the gate. And I would consider them both to be bona fide cult classics. It's not like I came out and did a Troma movie and then I did some insane micro budget backyard type stuff. So I can't honestly say one experience was better, because I was learning 2 different things. The first time, but Terra Firma obviously was the best. I was just a kid off the street who had been watching Lloyd Kaufman movies my whole life, and now here I was acting in one and getting directed by the man himself. So I'd have to say that was the best experience ever.
What has been your favorite film you worked on, and your worst?
Oh, boy. Okay. Well, the favorite, obviously, I'm going to have to say 68 Kill. It's my most recent movie. It's the one that I wrote and directed. I got to make all the decisions. So whether or not you like it or hate it is very much on my shoulders. You know what I mean? A lot of the other times when you write something and you give it to someone else and you're not on the set, you can't control a lot of things. So having that level of control on 68 Kill working with a caliber of actor that I thought was a little bit higher than I'm used to working on, having it, win the audience award at South by and get a small theatrical run and then get released all around the world and then come out on Netflix was a great thing. It was very vilifying for me to know that I could, do something at that level. So, I mean, that was great. Oh my God. But the worst, I mean, somebody's going to see this and not like that at all. I guess it depends on if you're talking about the final product or the experience. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There are movies that I've worked on that have been fine and everybody was lovely, but when I watched the final movie, I was really disappointed in it. And there were movies that just the pay and the physical labor and everything. The movies turned out okay, but the actual experience of it was like pretty terrible. And I got handfuls of both of those. And I guess, I don't know, I can't name names, but like something like, for instance, Chad Barron's The Ghouls, which I think is a really, really solid little low budget movie that we shot for very little money here in LA. And I think the movie itself is great, but the physical experience of it, shooting in Skid Row with no permits from, sundown till sun up, afraid you're either going to get shanked by a hobo or arrested, and then no toilets, and you're going to the bathroom, where 8,000 syphilitic hepatitis infected people have like been shooting up or whatever. You're just like, oh, what am I doing, man? What am I fucking doing? But but that movie turned out okay. So, I hate to waffle on that worst experience, but I'm going to be nice and just be like, I've made some winners and I've made some losers. That's what happens when you make as many products as I have.
Okay, so what are some of the main inspirations behind your portrayal of the Killjoy character?
Wow. Okay. So, so what happened is the first Killjoy movie came out when I was still living in New York and working for Trauma. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing it at the video store, and Patrick Cassidy, who co-wrote Terra Firma and also co-wrote Citizen Toxie with me, and I were friends, and we rented Killjoy because we were like, what's the magic of the full moon movies? Like, why is it that he keeps making these movies, but Lloyd can only make a movie every year or two or something like that? And so we rented this movie Killjoy, and it was like, we were laughing at it. Lo and behold, a few years later, I moved to LA, and I get a call from J.R. Bookwalter, who had been introduced to me by Debbie Rochon, who I work with on Terra Firma, and they were looking for somebody to come in and just do production work, be a producer for Killjoy 2. So I was like, great, man, I'll take a job. And I went and met with the director, and we had about 12 days of prep. And we had to cast this thing and find all the locations and do everything. And I was talking to the director, and, I said, hey, we got to get Killjoy cast up. What about the guy who played him in the first movie? She was like, he doesn't want to do it. And I was like, well, no problem. We'll just find somebody approximately that tall and thin and physically the same. And she was like, well, I was thinking, you've acted in some stuff. I've seen you, and you're going to be there every day because you're already a producer. So maybe you could just play it. It would be cheaper and easier for the whole production. And since I was the producer, I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I didn't know, I didn't really watch the first movie. It was just a matter of once you put all that shit on your face and you put in the teeth and you put in the contacts and you put in the costume and you look at yourself in the mirror, you just kind of like, people ask me to do the Killjoy voice all the time, and I'm like, I can't do it. I can't. I have to have the shit on. But honestly, I was so busy sort of making sure the locations were secure and that we had gas in the van and everything like that, that I didn't really have much time to think about like how Killjoy was going to go. And I'm not really an actor. And so I was like, whatever happens, I will be able to do consistently.
Yeah.
And so it was only later that I look at it and I'm like, okay, maybe there's some Beetlejuice in there. There's a little bit of that Michael Keaton thing. But I also feel like the character sort of shifted too. In the first movie, I was asked to be like scary Killjoy because I'm still kind of a slasher, a Jason or whatever. And then as he became more of a character, I was able to, work in sort of what I like about Killjoy is he's sort of always frustrated, even though he's ultimately kind of powerful. A lot of times he's powerless around all the dumb situations that are happening around him. And as an independent filmmaker, I understand that feeling a lot. And I'm just able to tap into my own personality a little bit when I'm doing Killjoy.
What is your craziest story from the set of a Killjoy film?
Well, you know what? I don't really have a lot of crazy stories. The craziest thing about the Killjoy movies is how every time we make one, they keep getting, we get less and less money and less time to do them. And yet they still come out approximately the same. So I can understand what Charles Band is thinking. You know, the first time we did it, it was like, you have 8 days to shoot this and you have like $35,000. The next one, they were like, let's do this one in 6 days and we'll give you $30,000. And the next one, the last one we did was, I think Killjoy Psycho Circus, we shot the entire movie in 5 days.
Wow.
And the budget was, I don't even know. We shot it all in one location. And I mean, when you're doing something in 5 days, it's like, hey, Trent, here's the 20 pages that we're doing today, right? You know, and oh, by the way, you just got the script like 2 days ago. So you're just going to have to learn this on the fly, and we just do them. I guess the craziest aspect is the fact that we shot part 3 in China. You can't tell because it was all done on sound stages, but we shot it in Guangzhou, China with, I think, the DP and John Latago, the director, and the main actors were Americans who flew in. But everyone else in the crew were all Chinese who didn't speak any English, who had just were learning how to use all the equipment while we were there. But they had these big sound stages and they had construction experience and whatever. And so we went there and shot it. So that was pretty wild, man.
That's awesome.
And it was like, it was like monsoon season. So it was like mega crazy humid and hot. And you're underneath all that shit. And it's not like lunch is coming and I can just pull it all off and like cool down or whatever. Yeah. It's on there. It's on there until they use special glue to shit to take it off. And, you know, no matter how hot or uncomfortable or whatever you are, you're living in that for like 16 hours, you know.
That has to be horrible. So you wrote and directed the film 68 Kill. What was that experience like, and what were some of the challenges you faced while creating that film?
It was based on a book by an author named Brian Smith, who I've been a fan of for many, many years, and who had some moderate success with traditional publishing. So I'd read his paperbacks, but then Amazon and the Kindle and everything came out, and a lot of authors that I liked started to pull out older books that maybe hadn't been published or things. They were doing self-publishing, and I read this book by him. He's normally like a horror author. This one was sort of like this crazy wackadoodle crime thing, and I was like, I really like this dude. I like this story. I think it's adaptable. I think I could do it within the budget. Let me give that a shot. I'd never done it before. And I reached out to him. I optioned the material, directly from him. Neither of us have lawyers. Neither of us have managers or agents or representatives, and we just did it. And then I adapted it. I think, once again, the hardest thing with a movie like that is finding a producer that's willing to do it, getting in line and waiting your turn in the queue behind the other 3 movies that they have to do. And every movie that you think they're like, we got this one. It's going to be next. We're going to shoot it in the next 6 months. That ends up being 9 months. That ends up being a year. And then there's another one. And so the sort of like the wait to get there. And a lot of the times you're like meeting actors, you're casting, not all the funding is in place. You're moving forward as if the movie's going to go, but realizing in the back of your mind that the carpet could be yanked out from you at any time. Once real money's being spent and you're in New Orleans and like people have signed contracts and everything like that, it gets a lot easier because now you can actually think about making the movie as opposed to what'll happen if, the lead actor who my movie is incumbent upon breaks his leg, snowboarding 2 days before or whatever. There's all kinds of things that can happen that can scuttle the production. And that's always, for me, the absolute worst time is the time between someone saying, yes, I'm interested and we're going to do this, and standing on set and saying action for the first time. It's terrible. It's nerve-wracking.
So you got to write for the video games, The Evil Within 1 and 2. What was that experience like, and how is that different from the other stuff you have done?
It's vastly different. You're talking about, multiple choice type of scenarios as opposed to, our active players as opposed to passive viewers. You know what I mean? Not only that, but I'm working with a team of people that are Japanese, many of whom don't speak English. I ended up getting a job on the first one because I knew someone at Bethesda GameWorks who had read some of my stuff, and They had finished the first game. They had done some testing. There was a lot of like sort of story confusion with the test players, and the game was just like maybe 2 months out from release. And so they flew me to the East Coast and put me in this secret room, and I played the secret game for a couple of days. And they said, "What do you think?" And I was like, "Well, this is great, but I'm like confused about these plot points." And they were like, "Great, this is exactly what all the players were giving us notes about. Can you come up with solutions?" And I said, "Well, look, what if it's too late to change the game significantly? You can't re-record the dialogue, but what if the player can find all kinds of newspaper clippings and diary entries and all these kind of things like that can fill in some of the gaps in the backstory?" And they were like, "That's great. It doesn't take up that much data." And so I wrote like sort of all that stuff in the first game. And then they did a DLC, and I did a little bit more intensive work on that, and I would have to call the guys and Skype with them in Japan at weird hours because of the time difference or whatever. So when it came down to doing part 2, they had been doing it for a while, and they were foreseeing some of the same problems that they had with part 1. The game was like, the story was written, some levels were built, but there was still like, whatever. And Bethesda called me up and they were like, "Can you come out and pitch your services?" I flew to the East Coast. I said, "Yeah, I'd love to be able to do this." And they were like, "Look, one thing is though, you got to go to Tokyo and you got to be there and you have to work with these guys." And it was like December. And I was like, "Okay, yeah, I can do that." They were like, "But we're really under a crunch." And they called me up on like December 12th and they were like, "Can you fly to Tokyo in like 3 days?" I didn't know anybody there. I didn't, whatever. And they were like, "And you're coming back in May." And I was like, whoa, Christmas, dude, whatever. And they're like, "Japan, they don't really do Christmas." I was like, "My wife's birthday, everything, all, I've got 2 kids." And they were like, "Look, we can't worry about that. This game is the most important thing." Got off the phone and went to the wife and was like, "Look, man, they're asking me to go to Tokyo in like 3 days and I'm not going to be back for months, And my wife was like, "Are you kidding me?" And I was like, "Yeah, but here's how much they're paying me." And she was like, "Get on that fucking plane. I'll see you in May." The biggest difference between working on a video game and an independent film is that video games got budgets,
Yeah.
So definitely the biggest paycheck I ever got. And it was really cool just to work in a foreign country with people making a new sort of form of entertainment that I'd never done before. I had a learning curve, but I wrote a vast amount. Every time, every line of dialogue, every description of every like item that you'd find in there, every sign in English on the wall, everything, everything. I wrote everything on the second game. So it was very intensive. And, look, I'm a writer. Like sometimes you got to go out and go for a walk and stare off into space, or, you're getting high and watching junky movies at night and you come up with ideas. That's what writing is. But this was like Japan. It was like, you come in here every day at 9 a.m. You sit in this chair. Here's a list of all the stuff you need to write and it needs to be done. And you're going to do it again tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And we'll give you Saturday and Sunday off. And you're going to come back next week and we're going to do it again, Shit. And so it was like writing is a job, which, I guess it is, but there it was Japan.
Yeah.
You show up, sit there for 10 or 11 hours. They need to see what you're doing. Those keyboards need to be clacking, And so I think a lot of people that I know that are also writers would not have been able to handle that thing. It was almost like digging a ditch or working on a farm, except for a video game,
So what was it like writing for It Came from the Desert?
Well, that one was, it's sort of a rewrite. They already had a script. They had a start date. It was written by a European guy whose English was his second language. And, they wanted just a polish. So there was a dialogue pass and then like a lot of character work and things like that. But the general idea of it's a sequel to this old game, it's motocross guys in the desert in New Mexico. A lot of that was already established. So I couldn't even tell you. I probably rewrote like a good, like a third of the movie. But honestly, I can't remember. I can't remember what my contributions to that movie were or not, but I did several passes, based on their notes, and they were really happy with it. And my writing was significant, but I couldn't tell you a specific thing that I did, that I was like, oh yeah, that part, that was mine. I think there was in the movie, there's like a like a old 1950s propaganda film type thing.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if I came up with that. I think I came up with that. I don't remember. Like for all the movies that you see on the IMDb that I have written, there's also like at least 50 that I've written that never went anywhere, or that I got paid to do work on that never got shot. You know what I mean? It's that how you see all the work that I've done, and then you need to multiply that by at least double or triple for the amount of work I've done in my life. You know what I mean? So there's so much work out there that I've done in 20 years of doing this, man. Sometimes I forget exactly what I did.
Okay. So you got to work on the recent film Girl on the Third Floor featuring CM Punk. What was that like?
Another situation where I worked with Travis Stevens, who was the director of that, and he also produced 68 Kill. He produced Cheap Thrills. I acted in a couple of his movies that he's done. We're really good friends, and he was going to direct this movie. And so he and I sat down and sort of cracked the story, did a whole bunch of treatments, and then, like I said, 6 months go by, they don't make it. Then they change their minds a little bit about what has to be done. And then we crack a couple more treatments. And I think originally I was supposed to write the screenplay too, but I asked for too much money and they were like, no. And I finally got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I'll take the story by credit and you can use my treatment as like groundwork for this, but I just can't dedicate the amount of time that I need to write this for the amount of money you're giving me. And so they made Travis do it. So I co-wrote the story, but I wasn't on set. They shot that in Chicago, but I did go to the LA premiere and had dinner with Phil Brooks, aka CM Punk, and his wife, who apparently is another wrestler. I don't know much about that world.
Oh, yes.
They were like super cool. Yeah. What's her name?
I can't remember her name, but I know she is a wrestler, and I think she's still employed by the WWE. Yeah.
Yeah. So I met them and had dinner with them, but I don't really know a lot about wrestling, but they were a really cool couple, really nice, and yeah.
So last question before you go, you recently got to work with Joe Castro on a project. Can you talk about that and what that was like?
Although we haven't shot the movie yet. So my only experience with Joe so far, which was amazing, was I went to his shop and I got my head cast. I'm acting in a movie. It's called An American Masquerade. It's done by these guys from Australia who are coming out here to shoot a movie. And Black Forest Films is what they're called. And what's interesting is that I was sitting in the airport in LAX, getting ready to fly to Tokyo, not knowing anybody there, not knowing what I was going to do. And I get a Facebook message from these Australians who are like, hey, Trent, man, look, we're just big fans of your work. And we wanted you to take a look at the trailer for our movie. Oh, shit. They're going to kill me if I forget. Anyway, I forgot what it's called, but they sent me the trailer for the Yakuza, Mondo Yakuza is what it was called.
Okay.
And so I watched the trailer and I was like, wow, this is really weird, but I happen to be like getting on a plane going to Tokyo right now. And the guy writes me back in like 5 minutes while I'm still at the airport. He's like, really? Because we're going to be in Tokyo shooting our new movie, The Viper's Hacks, in like 3 weeks. And we're also having the premiere of Mondo Yakuza here in Tokyo. So I was like, all right, well, I'll be there. And I ended up hanging out with these guys, befriending them. They were like, when you're working in a place where 99% of the people don't speak English, like all day, every day, being able to hook up with some like foreigners that speak English was like life-saving. So I went to the screening of their movie and kind of like hung out with them. And then they went off and shot their movie and they came back for a couple of days and we hung out. And then we all went out to dinner last night and they took off. And I thought, well, those guys are great, but I'll never see them again. And then they ended up taking a trip to the States, and it was their first trip here. And we hung out in LA and they went to Vegas and all over the place. And they were like, we want to make a movie here. So now they're coming here and doing a movie much like they did in Tokyo, but in America. And Joe is a special effects guy. And I went and got my head cast. Not going to tell you what happens to my character. And I'm sure I'll work with Joe again while he's there doing all the stuff. But, Joe's legendary. I know of Joe. Obviously, I've seen Joe's movies. I know a million people who know Joe. So it was cool to finally, be able to powwow with him.
Hell yeah. Well,
I'm looking forward to working.
Well, thank you for coming on the first episode of the Power Hour, man. I really appreciate it. It's awesome to be able to talk with Killjoy and you. It's just,
I'm Killjoy.
You are Killjoy, man. That's crazy. That literally a couple weeks ago, I was like, I need to have this guy on my show, and now it's come to life. Thank you for making that happen, man.
No problem, man. The internet, it's a hell of a thing, man. It's a hell of a thing. So good luck with the podcast, and thanks for having me on. And keep an eye out for my shit when it comes out.
Absolutely. Okay, man. Talk to you later.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Hey, guys, and stay tuned for more on this episode. We are not done yet. Here is a little commercial from our friends at Brown Space Films. Guys, here you go.
Hey, piss ants. This is the fucking TJ Bowser Power Hour.
The river of Jordan is deep and wide. Hallelujah. Milk and honey on the other side. Hallelujah.
Everyone, I would like you to meet Angelica Jarvis.
My dad is missing. He thinks Jason is back, and he's probably gone after him again.
But what about the rumors? What about the rumors that there's a homicide investigation?
Rumors? I don't deal in rumors, kid.
But what about Jason?
Dad left you a note on the table.
He was like after your sister. I don't know when I'll be home.
You know his mom was the original person that killed her, right?
Somebody's there. Whatever happened to his dad?
Passed away. Alone and grieving from the sound of it.
Sounds like he really loved his kid.
A lot.
He's back.
Okay, guys, and welcome back to the TJ Bowser Power Hour. And this is the discussion portion of the show. And we were waiting for a special guest to come on and join me, the guy who is behind the creation of the blacksmith mask. We'll see if he pops in here. But we have a couple fan questions from you listeners out there. Here he is. Jaret will be popping in here real soon. There he is. What's up, buddy?
What up? How's it going?
Hey, everybody, welcome Jaret Von Jekyll to the Power Hour. We are live on Facebook right now. So let's answer some questions here, Jaret. From
All right, I'm ready.
Brody over on Instagram at Brody.Kane. Out of all of the horror movies that you've seen, what's your favorite production design? I'll let you go first, Jaret.
Oh, first? Okay. I have no short answers, but, you know, what production design means to other people, you know, might mean something different to myself. But I don't know horror movies to have particularly, you know, spectacular production design. The closest example that I could think of in any recent memory would be The Shape of Water. Not necessarily a horror movie, but has horror elements, and but the production design is really great in that movie. And what production design means to me, and why I think that is a spectacular example, is because they do a great job with the lighting, set design, and color grade in post. And it creates this really, really great, beautiful, cohesive spectacle. And I think that's a good sign of good production design.
Okay. I would have to say for me, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, mainly because each of the dream sequences are so different, and the production design assists in that and really allows you to set the mood and atmosphere for that particular sequence. So that'll be my short answer for that question. So from James at Instagram at Ninja Nightmare Studios 2018, what horror movie characters that have came out since 2000 would you put in the big four? Jaret?
Well, it's also like, for that, it's, what is the criteria that we're using to measure what the big four is there in the first place? Is it because they have, 17 movies in each franchise? Like, I don't know what the criteria would be. If that's our measuring stick and our measuring bar is they have a bunch of movies in their franchise and they're semi-successful, then I guess I would say Saw, but there's not one, icon to put on it. Jigsaw dies in the third movie and you just have, I guess, the puppet, but I guess that would be my answer. I'm not really sure about that.
That is also another hard question to answer because I don't think a movie has really come out since 2000 that's that iconic or that has resonated that hard in pop culture.
I agree.
Yeah. Nothing's worthy, I guess. So next question from Taylor over at Instagram at Mummy Dahlia. What's a good convention you like going to and what's it all about? So, Jaret, you can't really answer this question because you don't really go to conventions.
Nope. I've never been to a convention, unfortunately.
Okay. So I normally go to Steel City Comic Con here in Pittsburgh, and I also go to the Monster Mania cons, and also this year I will be going to Chiller Theater and Memento Con and Living Dead Weekend, also in Monroeville here. But I highly recommend Monster Mania Con, ran by Dave Hagen. It is a wonderful convention, very friendly people, awesome lineup every year, very good hotel that they have it in, and it's a very well organized, and the costume contest is always a wonderful to see. The Q&A panels, top-notch stuff, top-notch. But I'd recommend Monster Mania and Steel City Con out of the ones that I go to the most. So, from listener Tyler, or as we call him, RoboFuck, over on my other podcasts, what's been your favorite cosplay to do? Okay, Jaret, this is a multiple-part question. So, Jaret, what's your favorite cosplay you've ever done?
I'm not a cosplayer. Mm-hmm. I make costumes and masks. You might be able to see some behind here, but I'm not a big dresser upper. I don't do that aside from Halloween, I guess.
Okay, fair enough. I would have to say, and I'm not just going to say this because Jaret's on the show, but my blacksmith costume with the mask that he made.
Which is awesome, by the way. I love those photos.
More to come. Definitely going to enter that into that Monster Mania costume contest for most scary there. And then says, what was your favorite scary movie as a kid, Jaret?
Ooh, I really I grew up with AMC Fear Fest coming on every October. Mm-hmm. And, they were just marathoning those, Halloween movies. And I always remember 4 and 5, Halloween 4 and 5. And those were my childhood. They were just always on television, especially around that that special time of the year. And I'd probably say those are probably my favorite. Even though they're not like the best in the series or anything, but I like those movies. I have nostalgia for them.
For me, Halloween H2O, Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X were the three movies that I watched a lot, mainly because those are the ones that really introduced me to both of those. I found Halloween 4 through H2O, but it doesn't resonate the same because it was my first introduction to Michael. Looking back as an adult, I see this nostalgia thing that kind of has, let's say, rotted my brain because it makes me like these films even though I know I shouldn't. It's really strange. But I'd have to say, as a kid, Jason Goes to Hell and Halloween H2O.
Right, Halloween H2O was the first horror movie I ever remember seeing.
Okay, so
I was really young there, but
the next question is, what is your favorite part about podcasting? I'll answer that. I would have to say interacting with the fans and then going to conventions and meeting you guys and having talks about horror films with you. It's probably the most satisfying thing that I've witnessed from doing all of this. But thank you. Next question is from Matt Sterling. How do you feel about the Star Wars fandom? Jaret, we'll start with that.
I don't really have an opinion on the fandom. I imagine that it's like any other fandom online, and it's probably really toxic and hateful. But I don't have any opinion on the fandom. I used to think I was a huge Star Wars fan until, you get on the internet and you realize you don't know shit. So, I'm indifferent to it. I think that I enjoy the prequel trilogies a lot more over the sequel trilogies. The sequel trilogies are just a hot mess. At least there is a cohesive vision and story in the prequels. But yeah.
Awesome. And then for me, I feel like it's a toxic fucking place. And it's filled of sweaty basement monger hate people who hate women, who probably have never felt the touch of a woman. So they sit in their basement all day, rubbing themselves with KY jelly and hating on anything that's new that comes from Disney.
Yeah, and that's any troll online. It doesn't matter if it's Star Wars fandom or not. It's all over the place on the internet. So,
do you believe that there's a rift between OG, prequel, and sequel fans? Yes. Generations. That's the problem. There's 3 very different generations of fans there. And there is the occasional person who likes all 3 and just loves them. But that's few and far between because people are so biased towards the films that came out whenever they were growing up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I don't really have an opinion on the fandom. I can only speak for myself in saying that I like the prequels.
Yes.
But you have a very, honest point there. I grew up with the prequels. That was my childhood. I saw, episode 1 in theaters. That was my first Star Wars movie I'd ever saw. I didn't even see the original movies before I saw that in the theater in 99 or whatever it was. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Some type of war over prequels and sequels. I think it's just silly, but.
So Heath Helsing asks, why is it today that all radio bands sound exactly the same?
As Mr. Krabs would say, money. Money is why they sound the same. It's the same reason why you get the same Conjuring movie every, year, 3 movies a year, the same movie. It's because of money. Mm-hmm. And, you make, radio friendly music, and, that it's just going to push money. Like that's the sole purpose of why you get just stuff washed out, movies, music, whatever.
I agree. And nobody really focuses on the art of things anymore. It's more to what can turn a profit the quickest, and what's the most I can get out of doing the least. And I think that that's just like a general mindset that certain generations have. And it's just really sad to see people that have almost 0 to no motivational skills. And that's something that we all probably could look back on and see that that's something that we probably shouldn't do moving forward with our lives.
Yeah, it's like what was successful in the past, and then they copy paste, and then that's what you get. You get the same thing over and over again.
And it's always important to work hard towards your goals, and that's can't say that enough. That if you want to do something, the only way you're going to do that is by working hard, and there's no such thing as shortcuts. There is just seeing your way to where you need to go and doing it. Just going up there, grabbing the bull by the horns, and fucking doing it.
Yeah, I agree.
So speaking of music, what's some of your favorite music that's released this year so far?
This year? Oh, I don't know. I'm not. I like some recent. I like some newer music. But a lot of my taste is like from the 80s. Like I don't.
Okay, let's talk about that. I'm a big guy into the 80s. I like the 80s pop music and rock music. I like that stuff.
Yeah, recent, like I like some recent stuff. Metal music has definitely had that effect, from our last question. It's just this copy paste sound. Whatever can sound most appealing to the most broad audience is supposed to do what's supposed to be most successful. So that's what they push out. Probably the most recent metal band that I really have enjoyed is 3 Teeth. I think they have a really, raw industrial sound that, harkens back to like 90s stuff. Fire from the Gods is also another, decent metal band that's like, recent, I guess. But I like a lot of other music too. I don't, subscribe to any one thing ever with anything.
I'm a pretty eclectic person myself. The new Amity Affliction album was actually really good, and it's just a mishmash of different styles and genres. It's Everyone Loves You Once You Leave Them. It's truly wonderful album that really hits home with some of the lyrics. They truly portray pain and emotion through their music. It's nice to see a band that's able to do that and not fit to like one specific genre, because each song is so completely different. They can go from a heavier song to a poppier song to even electronic at times. It's nice to see a band that's like that.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have enough of it nowadays.
Exactly. Like we talked about earlier, everything's cut and paste, and it's the sad truth. So what's your feelings on, we actually recorded a little bonus episode for you guys there that like the discussion beyond the discussion. We had a very intense talk about Candyman. And for anybody who doesn't really know much about the new Candyman trailer, it is produced by Jordan Peele. Do we know the director's name? It's a female director.
Yeah, I think it's Nia something. I know it's a female director. I know she doesn't have much credited to her name, but I have full faith that she will deliver a good movie if Jordan Peele's behind it. Behind her, helping her out.
And what's your thoughts on them giving this the Halloween 2018 treatment and doing a sequel to the original instead of a remake?
I don't care if it's good. Like, it doesn't matter. They could change, a bunch of stuff. They could change all types of things, but as long as it's crucial to, the identity that would be Candyman, like you can't just be this completely different thing, but it doesn't matter as long as it's good. No one's going to complain if it's good. If you make a good movie, then everyone's happy. But, you never go into movie making trying to please everybody anyways. So.
Speaking of that, so you do mask making, you do short film making. What is some of your favorite masks that you've created?
I really like the Nightmare Man. That's one of them. It's one of my more favorite masks that I've made. It's a design that I pump out often. I did a short film based off of this character, and you can see that on YouTube, but I don't know. I don't really have too many favorites. I just, they're like babies, it's your stuff. You spend time on it, you create it, and then you can't pick favorites.
Fair enough. That's completely understandable. Okay, so this has been a very strange episode. We started this episode with an interview with Trent Haaga, Killjoy the Clown. Have you ever watched those films, Jaret?
Killjoy, I saw, I think like the first or the second one. I remember, it was back in the Blockbuster days where, you go, I go in the Blockbuster with my cousins and we all pick, it was all about the cover art,
Yeah.
Killjoy always had the real scary clown on the cover art. So we're like, this has to be good. You don't know what's good or what's not good when you're a child anyways, but yeah, I definitely, I remember at least, I don't know which one I've seen, maybe both of them. I don't know.
Yeah, I just really fell in love with those movies. I recently got to sit down and watch all of them. And watching them, I'm not a really big fan of the first one. The second one, I really start to pick more up for me. And then into the third, fourth, and fifth ones, they're just...
There's 5.
There's so many of them. And they're so...
Wow.
They get progressively, like, more cornier and more comedy based, similar to the Nightmare on Elm Street series. So
Right.
you start out with someone like a serious attempt at a horror film, and then they get less and less scary, but the comedy and horror aspects get into like the more trauma thing. But I also then Trent Haaga being involved, and it's really fun to watch them because it just straight up disgusting fart humor and funny, gross. It's cool. They're gory. They're fun to watch, and the acting is just perfect for the subject matter, and I recommend it to anyone.
Right on.
Yeah, it's cool to see them. So, yeah, this has been great. There's been a lot of support on Facebook with people sharing and stuff, and with the promotional stuff for this episode. A lot of people showing support for this show and support for me and the Do Back Discussion Network. This show will be random throughout the week. I will try to get a new episode out every week, but it is a hefty show to produce, and there's a lot of preparation. But sorry for the delays today. I know we were supposed to go live at 1, ended up doing it 6 hours later. Shit happens, but guess what? You still got the episode, and that's all that matters. You can, if you probably are listening to this, then you're probably a fan of my other shows, Gore and More, Jerk the Curtain, Rabbit Hole, and of course this one. Now, all those are available, as you can see on the crawler on the bottom that says iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and your source for pop culture and much more, dobackdiscussion.net. And if you want to stop looking like shit, go on over to dobackdiscussion.net and pick up some merch so maybe you can finally get laid, you fucking losers. Anyway, guys, thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for sharing. Jaret, where can they find you, man?
You can find the page for my art, Von Jekyll Art, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram. I'm Amongst Dead Things. I'm pretty sure if you type in Von Jekyll Art on Instagram, you'll get me too. So Von Jekyll Art, VonJekyllArt.
Excellent. You'll see much more of Jaret and his work on the Power Hour as I continue to promote his work, man. You do excellent work, and I can't wait to work more with you and get some more of your artwork on me and make costumes out of it, man. That new Crow Eater sculpt is premium. I love it.
Thank you very much, man, and congrats on your new show, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. So I'm going to drop you out of here, and I'm going to finish up the show, and thanks for coming on, and hope to see you soon.
No problem.
So, guys, thank you for joining me on the premiere episode of the TJ Bowser Power Hour. Normally, we would have the lovely, lusty, and busty Miss Tisa Wicked on here to talk all things horror and to read the fan mail. But she is sick right now, and we're giving her some time off before she comes back to us, but she'll probably be back either next week or the week after that. Thank you for Jaret for filling in for her this week, and I hope to have more special guests like that in the future, like we did with Trent Haaga, more interviews. Of course, this entire show's concept was created by Jeremy Brown from Brown Space Films. He was the creator of Friday the 13th Vengeance and the recent Nightmare on Elm Street fan film, Up All Night. Shout out to Jeremy Brown and everyone over at Brown Space Films, my buddy Jason Brooks, my close friend Peter Anthony, Riley Lorden over at Slash and Cast, Tisa Wicked, of course, from Wicked Wednesdays on the Do Back Discussion Network, the lovely makeup artist Julia Ashley, my friend Taylor, my handsome Bobbert, Bobby Amone, Big Johnny D, and which is one of my co-hosts over at Gore and More, Chadwick Chrisman, another Gore and More host. Shout out to all the hosts over at Box Office Banter and Do Back Sports. I love you guys. Thank you for staying on the network and producing content week in and week out. Thank you for all my listeners out there and supporters of the network. I appreciate you, and this show wouldn't be possible if you guys didn't come on here and listen to me rant and ramble. I promise you a new episode of Jerk the Curtain will be coming out soon. Corey and I need to get our asses in gear and make some more sweet content for you all. But yeah, all of that will be coming down the pipeline. More episodes of the Power Hour to come out in the following weeks. This weekend, I will be at Monster Mania 45. Come meet and greet me, guys. Come say hi, get a picture, see the blacksmith in person, get your skull crushed, meet the Gore and More people, meet Wicked Wednesdays host Tisa Wicked, meet some of the other people from the Do Back Discussion Network, meet people over at 13 Gallows Lane. What else? What else do I have to say? Meet Peter Anthony. Meet Slash and Cast. Jason Brooks might show up. Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th Vengeance. Also, make sure to check out all the other shows on the Do Back Discussion Podcast Network. I appreciate all of you for listening. This is TJ Bowser signing off. Roll that outro footage, motherfucker.